Good morning and welcome to another episode of OT Investigates. In today's episode, we're going to be looking through the best and worst value for money units and boxes in MESBG. So basically what I've done is I've put all of the currently in production MESBG products into a spreadsheet. There are 260 in total, so it's taken quite a while. And basically all I did was just chuck each of them into Google and then find which place was cheapest. I've not included the ones that are out of production because it doesn't really seem fair or particularly relevant, because then you're depending a lot on prices on eBay and stuff like that. So basically, structure for today's video, we're going to start off by looking at the warriors, do the worst and the best value products there. Then we'll move on to the heroes, again do the worst and the best value products there. Then we'll move on to finally the Battlehost boxes and an overall ranking for the worst and the best units. Now, just a quick disclaimer, there are a couple of units that are quite hard to fit into the rankings here, specifically the units that have multiple uses for a box. So for instance, a lot of ones that fall into this area are cavalry units. So for instance, in a Knights of Rivendell box, there is a sculpt that's included that's basically meant to look like a captain that you could potentially kit out as a captain. For the most part, where it says explicitly that it can be included, or there's explicitly a model that can be used as the captain, I've included the captain in their points. So for instance, if you were to go to the Eastland Cataphracts, it does specifically say in their unit description that it includes a cloak for the captain. So it is designed to include a cloak for the captain. Where I've not included it, and this might be a little bit contentious, is in something like the Iron Hills Goat Riders on Forge World, because for instance, there's no reason as far as I can see that you couldn't maybe convert one of those to be a captain, but because they're not explicitly a captain model, I've not included them. The other one that was quite hard to fit in was the Rangers of Middle-earth. They have loads of different ways of kitting them out. You could even, as Honoured has done, run them as Rangers of the North, in which case the value obviously shoots up massively. In general, the average points value was about 5.56. So that would be the kind of value you're expecting to get. Units that were in and around 5.56, like Bolg, for instance, or Helm, or a box of Harad Warrior. So without further ado, let's get started. Looking first at the warriors. Now, I had a few assumptions coming in here. My pet hate is for the Mounted Royal Guard, and I was really hoping they would do quite badly, and they did do fairly badly, which was quite nice to see. But they didn't actually make the top 5, so for each of these, I'm just going to do a top 5. Coming in 5th place here were the Dunlending Huskars from Forge World. Now, big problem for them, they are quite expensive because they're Forge World, and the units themselves aren't actually that expensive, and you'll probably spot a little bit of a theme with some of the units here, and also Forge World didn't do terribly well in some of these. Coming in 4th place were, as I mentioned this unit earlier actually, the Iron Hills Goat Riders. They are £55 for 60 points, and yeah, that's not going to give you great value for money. I'll just explain the number that's flashing up for you on screen now. Basically for each of them, I've just worked out how many points you get for spending a pound of money. So for instance, the Dunlending Huskar, you would get 1.32 points for spending a pound. For the Iron Hills Goat Riders, you would get 1.09 points for spending a pound. Coming in 3rd place, the 3rd worst value unit in the game is the Serpent Riders. Again, similar problem, they only come in a 2-pack and you're really not getting great value from those, just 1.08 points. Now, one of the most egregious and terrible models in the entire world is the Troll Brute. It is 100, it's 100 points, and I believe it's £95. So you're getting very marginally over 1 point per pound at 1.05. Just quickly before we get to number 1, a few honourable mentions. Mounted Royal Guard placed 10th with 1.4 points per pound. Lake Town Guard and Lake Town Militia came in equal 7th place with 1.36. And the Crabane and the Chariots also were in the top 10 and did very poorly. But yeah, the worst value warrior unit in the game is the Dunlending Horsemen. They were in fact the only unit to break the 1 point per pound barrier. They come in at 0.77 points per pound. They're just awful. Like you have to pay, I think it's 30 quid for 22 points or something. Like it is awful value. And yeah, if you were to make a 500 point army out of these, it would cost you in the region of £600 to £700 if you made it of just Dunlending Horsemen. However, let's flip the script and look at the best units in the game, the best value warrior units in the game. Coming in at number 5, coming in at equal 4th place, it should be entirely fair, even though one of them is very close to my heart. We have the Grim Hammers and the Palace Guard. Both of these come in at 8.8 points per pound. So you can already see the difference between these units compared to the previous ones. Yeah, these are just a very elite pair of units that come in a nice big plastic box, and you get lots of value for your money. Coming in 3rd place, and this is a bit of a weird one, but yeah, I guess it kind of makes sense, is the Demolition Team. You get 9 points per pound for this one, and yeah, you get some nice elite units, and they are really quite cheap. A couple of Berserkers, Demo Charges, etc. in there. Coming in 2nd place were the Mirkwood Rangers. Again, a big plastic box, and I think they're 14 or 15 points a unit, so some really nice value to be had there if you're running that All Rangers Legendary Legion. They come in at 9.33 points per pound. Some honourable mentions before we move on any further for some other units that did really well. The basic Eagles box is pretty good. Warriors of Last Alliance, good as well. Basic Warriors of Erebor is quite good. Gets you some nice value in there just because you can chuck the spears on them as well to make them a bit more expensive. And yeah, the Galadrim Warriors also do well for some nice elite units in there. But the overall winner for the best value warrior unit in the game, and I don't think anyone's going to be overly surprised by this, it is the Warriors of the Dead. Again, we talked about them when we did I think our Legendary Legion series or something, how good a value these units tend to be. Very elite, all plastic. You get 9.86 points per pound when you're buying this one. So they're around probably 11 or 12 times better than the Dunlending Horsemen, which, yeah, when you're thinking about building an army, getting that much value for money is a really good thing. Next, moving on to heroes, and we'll be starting again with the worst value heroes in the game. And again, you may spot a theme with where these are coming from. In 5th place was Gwyer here at 2.14 points per pound. This is the Forge World Gwyer here, the GW one, which you can maybe switch to Gwyer here. It's actually very good value, but yeah, this one, I think it's £70 for 150 points, which is really not very good value for those heroes. Next one is going to be Aldor and Halath from Forge World. Again, they're quite cheap heroes. I think they only come to 50 points in total, and it's 30 quid for the box, so you get 2.08 points per pound here. Now, a bit of a curveball here. I had not predicted this one at all, but coming in equal 2nd place is Yazneg and the Dragon Emperor. Both of them you get just 2 points per pound. Dragon Emperor, obviously very expensive, but relatively elite, so it gets you some nice points in there. But Yazneg is for some reason £30 for a 60-point hero. Not really sure why that is. Yeah, just quickly, again, before we move on, some honourable mentions. Quick Beam did really badly, despite being an Ent. He's very, very expensive. Elf Helm and Deowine also knocking around in there. Paying 30-ish quid for some fairly cheap heroes is not a good way to get value. Rosie and Gaffer Gamgee unfortunately didn't do terribly well in here, and Anborn and Mablung also struggled as well. But the worst value hero unit in the game, and I guess maybe the worst value army in the game possibly as well, is Smaug. Smaug coming in at £420 for 700 points, gives you a value of 1.67 points per pound. Now, I think he's kind of in its own league, and maybe even putting him in here isn't a relevant comparison, but yeah, he's really not very good value for money if you're thinking purely about points. Now, let's flip to the other end and look at the best value heroes in the game. Now, I don't think there'll be any ones that are too contentious in here. Hopefully they all make sense, but yeah. Coming in 5th place were Tom and Goldberry. They're 300 points, and I think the box is only 17 or 18 pounds, which is really nice. So you're getting about 17.6 points per pound here, which, again, if you're sort of comparing to what we looked at earlier, really good value. Just pipping them was Galadriel and Celeborn for a very similar reason. I think the box is marginally cheaper, you get slightly fewer points, but again, you can get really good value from that box there. The next one is the Foot Nazgul, so the 9 abroad on foot. For this one, you get 18 points per pound if you fully kit them all out, so they very marginally beat out Galadriel and Celeborn. So you do pay a bit of money for them, but obviously getting 9 heroes in a box is very good value, as we might see later on. Coming in 2nd place, and this will probably reveal what first is, so hopefully no spoilers here, but it is the Fellowship. The Fellowship actually does get beaten to the post. The Fellowship box gives you 30.89 points per pound, which is pretty ridiculous value. The box is definitely showing its age, but it's still very good value if you're just looking for points on the board. Quick honorable mentions before we move on. The top 10 was listed with the kind of ones you'd expect. So Sauron was in there, Elendil and Isildur was very good, Vanquishers the Necromancer was good, Durin and Mardin, which was a pleasant surprise, hadn't expected them to be in there, and then Elrond and Gil-galad also do very well as well. But coming in first place with a points per pound of 36.43, so beating the Fellowship by a fairly reasonable margin actually, is Thorin's Company. This is helped by the fact there's just more of them in the box, and you get more that have a sort of consistent value. Obviously, you've got the big hitters in the Fellowship, but they do drop off fairly quickly when you get down to the Hobbits. You don't get the kind of value for money you get from Thorin's Company, and also you still get Gandalf in there, which is really nice for getting those points up. I think it's actually over 1,000 points in that one box. Finally, before we do the overall rankings, we're just going to have a quick look at the Battlehost boxes. Now, this has probably been done by somebody else, so I'm just going to fly through it really quickly. Coming in fourth place is the Rohan Battlehost box. It's 8.8 points per pound, which, comparing to what we looked at earlier, is fairly good. It's comparable to the other, the sort of best warrior boxes in the game, so not too bad, but you do lose out a bit by Rohan being a bit less elite. Coming in third place was the Mordor Battle Force box. Again, you get the Witch King, which is nice, but then those other units aren't quite as elite. You don't get the same points from them. The Gondor Battlehost box actually goes up to 13.1 points per pound, which is mainly helped by the fact you get Gandalf and Pippin, which is like Gandalf's one of the most expensive heroes in the game. Tag Pippin onto him as well. You get some really good value. But then a fair way ahead is the Isengard Battlehost box at 14.7 points per pound. It's just lots of elite Uruk-hai, a nice expensive hero in Saruman, and you even get Grima to go with him. So yeah, really good value from that Battlehost box, and it's definitely one of the better value products out there for building an army. So you may be able to work out what this is, but I'll go through it anyway, just in case. We'll go through the bottom 5 and the top 5. The bottom 5 for worst value units is in 5th place, the Dunlending Huskarl. In 4th place, it's going to be the Goat Riders, 1.09 points per pound. Serpent Riders come in 3rd at 1.08 points per pound. Troll Brutes, awful model and really bad value, so please don't buy it. Coming in at 1.05 points per pound. And then the worst value unit in the game, as I said, is the Dunlending Horsemen. Yeah, those poor Dunlending Horsemen, they're pretty nice sculpts, to be fair, and maybe putting a couple in, but paying £31 for what I think is 24 points is not good value. So zipping up to the other end, the top 5, again, you're probably able to work this out. So in 5th place is Tom and Golbury, and then Galadriel and Celeborn, then the Foot Nazgul, then Fellowship, and Thorin's Company. Cool, hopefully that all made sense. I put way too much effort into this video for way too little end product. If there's anything I've missed or any questions you have about the sort of the way I've done it, please just chuck them in the comments. It's not perfect, and obviously it will get outdated as sort of prices change and stuff like that. But yeah, this was just something I was interested in to see what are the best and worst value boxes that GW make in the game. Cool. Well, thank you for listening, and yeah, looking forward to see you for the next video.